All right. Hello, everyone, and welcome to Born to Be Rich. I'm your host, Judy King. And today we have someone very special to me on this podcast, Casey Warwick. I am so excited to have you here.
I'm so excited to be here. Thank you for having me on. This is super, super, super cool.
Oh, it's super cool to have you as someone who is a mentor to me, now a business partner, a friend. I feel like our friendship has grown so quickly in such a short space of time. And I am really, really grateful for everything that you contribute to my world. And I know that you're going to have so much to contribute to everyone who's listening today as well.
Oh, you made me cry already.
So I'm going to get you to introduce yourself. Is that okay? So just share a little bit about who you are, what you do, and a bit of backstory of what you've come through and to get you to here, to this moment today.
That's a huge backstory. So we'll start with where I'm at now. So I am a business embodiment coach. And for those who don't know what that means we look under what's happening with the results as opposed to the just straight at the results. We look at the whole woman, the embodiment of you, and how it's showing up in everywhere in your life to see what happens and why you're getting the results that you're getting in business. And for me, this love started with my journey. Like this work started with my journey, which I think is, I think most of us get into this kind of space because of the personal work that we've had to do to overcome what we've, walked through. But mine started with, childhood trauma, my parents, separating at a young age, going through addictions and different scenarios like that. But then once I was 18, I actually joined the military. And so even though I'd walked through a whole heap of childhood trauma when I was younger, it never really affected me. I didn't feel like it had some big impact because I felt like, we were still really cared for, we were still really loved through the whole process. But it wasn't until I had a severe back injury that took my military career away from me, essentially. So I was out within 18 months. And I had to then learn, okay, well, what does life look like now? Because military was meant to be my safe point, the thing that would, create my career and give me stability in life and all those things. And so I then went on this journey of trying to figure out who I was. And it was interesting because when I was 16 years old, I had this like 16, 17, I would have been this fork in the road where I was trying to decide whether I was going to go to university or go to the military. And I got accepted for law and criminology and all those kinds of things because I was a bit of a smart cookie in school. But at this stage, I'd already moved out of home. I moved out at like 15 and I was working at KFC to pay my rent and all the things in between. And the only reason I chose the military was because I couldn't afford my tuition at university at the time. And so I was like, well, if I go into the military, they'll pay for it. They'll do it for me. And so when I was booted out of the military, it wasn't just the whole idea of being in the military. It was like, now I can't go to university. Now I can't do this. Now I can't do that. And I went on this massive downward spiral for about 3.5 years of severe depression, severe anxiety. I put on a whole heap of weight. My injury got to the point where I couldn't walk longer than 100 meters without limping, crying, nearly falling over. And I was also in a very toxic relationship. Like I'd moved to be with him and all the things. And so I was kind of getting like all these life lessons at like 20 years old of like, what is happening in my life? I just don't know what I'm meant to be doing. And then he proposed to me at 22. And I remember sitting there, 21, sorry, I was, but I remember thinking like 2 weeks before he proposed, if he ever proposes to me, I'll say no. And when he proposed to me, I was so unconscious, caught up in the moment, I said yes. And about a week later, I said to him, oh, should we plan a wedding date? And he looked at me and he goes, you're being a bit of a bridezilla, aren't you? And so it was just, that was kind of the wake up call for me because I was like, and I made the decision then and there, okay, I'll never marry you. But then it was like a week later, I was putting on like, you know how you have a fat dress? Like it's like your dress that you wear and it's like your favorite dress. And I've spoke to you about my fat pants and I love my fat. But I was wearing this one dress and he looked at me and he goes, you can't wear that anymore. And I was like, what do you mean? He goes, you're too fat for it. And I was like, and it was like this, was like double whammy, like smack in the face, like, and I just started crying. He goes, you can cry about it or you can do something about it. And at that moment, I could barely walk. I was feeling really shit about myself. I was deep in the hole. And him and I had made the promise to each other that we'd always be honest with each other. However, that like without skills and communication and all those things, like honesty is not always the nicest thing, right? And so I decided in that moment to then go and join a boot camp that was down the road. They did boxing. So I was like, oh, maybe I can just do some arm stuff. That'll get me started. And my dream, like when I was in the military, I was always like, I'd love to be a personal trainer. Like that would be so good. And anyway, I got to the point where I was getting my fitness right back. I started doing triathlons. I started doing some real big things in fitness. And people were like, oh my God, you should be a personal trainer. And it like inspired that dream again. But he didn't want me to have a business. He wanted me to be a trophy stay-at-home wife. And so we had this big argument one day because I said to him, I'd love to study personal training. And he was like, you're not allowed to. We can't afford it. And it was like this real, and I was 21 at the time, right? And so I went behind his back to get a loan to pay for this. And that was the start of our relationship ending, obviously. But eventually I'd left. And once I left, though, I left him and I went straight back to the thing I was doing before I met him. Before I left him, I was working in car yards. I was still doing the same job. And I realized like 2 years in, I was like, oh, it wasn't him. It was still me. Like I have to be the person to change here. So after many job changes, many of being forced out the door because God's like, nope, you're not fucking staying here. Like, stop. I eventually started my personal training business and I worked in multiple jobs to build that up. And yeah, after about, I think it took about 4 or 5 years to get it really going. And through that time, I started my own personal development as to why I can't run a successful business. Learned that it's all to do with me, my inner child, all the things that are going on and everything that happened there. And so that journey just became this huge whirlwind. And as I'm walking through that, I'm also walking through domestic violence and all the horrible relationships that you can go through in your young 20s and, father wounds, mother wounds, you name it. I was going through this whole tumultuous cycle. And then I remember I was in like a bit of like, I just got out of my domestic violence relationship. I had lost nearly all of my clients. I had 3 clients left and I was earning $180 a week. And I was luckily enough able to pick up some shifts at the gym that I was working at the time. But I had like no money to my name. And my friend at the time handed me a ticket to Tony Robbins. And he was like, I don't care what you have to fucking do, just come. And so he gave me the ticket and I paid for the VIP up level. And so prior to this, right, I had studied NLP masters. I'd done a lot of work up until this moment, but I was still a shit fight. Like everything was still over the shop. Anyway, when I was sitting there in Tony Robbins, have you done Tony Robbins?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, when they do the Dickens process and it's like that point in your life where you have to choose this, like this way or that way, right? Like you choose which way your life's going to look.
Yep.
Well, mine was like, my thing that I had to face off with was like, if you choose to keep seeing men this way, what does life look like for you? Because I believed men couldn't love. I was infertile, right? So doctors at 18 while I was in the military also diagnosed me infertile. So I had all these stories around who I was as a woman. And I feel like I'm giving you very surface level here, but I'm sure you guys can piece the pieces together of how much depth there was in a lot of this. But in that moment, I'd sell myself. If I kept living the way that I was living, I'd be that cougar in a bar, 50 years old with a cigarette and, straight whiskey, waiting for a young guy to come home with me, right? Like that was the vision I got. And I was like, fuck, I do not want to live like that. Like I want a family. And even if I can't physically have my own person, my own child, I want to adopt. I want to be a mother. And yeah, so I made the decision then and there. It wasn't that men could love, but I made a decision that I would learn that men could love. I would learn that they knew how to love. And 24 hours later, I was on a date with a bang. He was sitting 2 rows behind me at Tony Robbins. And yeah, it was just like, those moments where you're just like, that's how fucking quick it can happen. That's like, that for me, like solidified so much. And so like since being with him, like this is why I'm such an advocate for the right love will set you up for life, because it's like him and I have gone through so much together. Like we both started with absolutely nothing when we both met, but now we've got so much behind us. You know, I fell pregnant after being diagnosed infertile within 8 months of living with him. Like it was just crazy. Like I started to just see how much we place limitation on ourselves. And I just kept getting, every time I had a limitation, it was like God was like, excuse me, no, excuse me, no, like, no. And so I'm just like, all right. So I can have a business and a healthy relationship, because that was when I left my previous fiance, I had taken the belief that I couldn't have a business and a relationship because he didn't want me to have a business. And so I was undoing all of this stuff. And yeah, that became the basis of what I built my business upon, because it was like when you learn to live without limitation, like you just keep getting offers, like left, right, and center. And so yeah, it was actually, it's funny, I'm sure I'll share this later, but I was having a moment even with my mentors this morning, just being like, there is not an area of my life that I haven't monetized now. Like it's just crazy just how little things can shift from a woman who had no money, shitty relationship, to now I'm, you know, with my son, love of my life. And I literally work like 4 hours a week. I work more because I can, but I don't have to work any more than 4 if I didn't want to. Like it's crazy. So yeah, that's a bit about me.
Amazing. Oh, what a story. Like
Yeah.
it's just living, breathing example of our life and how it, it teaches us so much, and everything that we go through is so divinely guided and perfect in all of the messiness and pain of it all, right?
Yeah.
I'm wondering, at what point did you realize, okay, embodiment is the way? Because you came from learning NLP, and I know you've done a lot of other modalities as well.
Mm.
Yeah, like how did you know that this was the direction even for you, and then the way that you wanted to lead in your business?
Well, it was honestly, it was when I did Bridge with Preston and Alexi, because up until that moment, I had done so many modalities that were all in the mind, all about mindset. I'd sat in seminar after seminar, like I'd been to Tony Robbins, Aaron Sonsoni, Cohen Ray, like, I'd done all the, what we know as the main juice of like personal development. And for some reason, I just wasn't getting it. Like I was not getting it. And, like I could talk it, I knew it, like I could coach someone on it, but for some reason I was making everyone else's lives better and mine was still a fucking shit show.
Yeah.
And I was like, what is going on here? Like, why? Like, how is your life getting better with the things that I'm saying and mine's not? Like, it's not landing for me, right? And then I went into Bridge, and I realized that your body is just, it holds everything. Like how your animal body moves is literally the key to absolutely everything in your life. And yeah, I went in there and I was just mind blown with watching how somatics work, watching how energetics play out, watching how, like, because by this stage I was already like studying Reiki, I knew energy and I knew those sorts of things, but to see it play out in the body, I was just like, fuck, because this is like real life. You put in the arena to see and test your nervous system, right? And I was just watching how I thought I was quite a strong woman. And then I'm put in a scenario where I thought would be easy and I'm straight in fight response, like in little things like that. And I could see where I wasn't receptive. I could see where, my masculine was just like at the fucking helm of the like road, like doing all the things. And I feel like this will be a lifelong thing for me, learning how to just fully let that go. But that work then and there, like I was like, day 2 in, and like being ex-military, I thought I had all these leadership skills. I was like, bossing everyone around, and Preston pulled me up in front of everyone and pulled me to pieces with my leadership.
Oh,
And I had never, I'd done a lot of stuff. Everyone had always been like, oh yeah, Case is a great leader. She does all this. She's meh, meh, meh. And he was like, where the fuck were you leading them off a cliff? And I was like, in front of everyone. And my ego had like an instant death in that moment. And I also knew that that was what I needed for where I
yeah.
wanted to go. And so after that scenario, like half an hour later, I walked up to him and I said, I don't know what it looks like, but you're my next coach and I'm hiring you. And he was just like, okay. And then, so I was waiting for him to put out an offer on Instagram. Nothing was coming. And then he put out this, like he said something about Kaboom. And I was like, oh, that's it. That's what I want to do with him. Like that business launch program, blah, blah, blah. And I messaged him and he goes, all his words were to me was, it starts in 24 hours, get your deposit in or you're not joining. And I was like, what's the deposit? And he's like, it was 2.6 USD. I had no money in my account, like fucking none. And I was like, oh, like, oh. And I called my dad and I'm like, will you pay for this? And dad's like, nope, not doing it. Like, because he knew that I would just put all my money to self-development. And so I had to get to work, make it happen. You've lost me.
That's back now.
Okay, I just took my mic out. Apologies. So yeah, I had to get to work and I sold like multiple personal training packs to make it happen. But the thing was, at the same time that this was all happening, was right as Evane and I had decided to move in together. But us moving in together wasn't just like, oh yeah, we live in the same city. We were both moving states to be together. And because we were actually like, he was in Melbourne, I was in Newcastle, and we were like, let's move to Sunshine Coast together. And it was like one of those moments where I was like, well, if I'm going to give it a go with this guy, I'm literally giving up my entire life. So I've got to fucking make something of this. And within 6 weeks, I'd made like 40 grand. And I just had this evidence behind me that this is the way. This is how I do this. And so I pretty much just absorbed everything that Preston had to say from then on in. Him and Alex, the way that they hold and teach and mentor, it cracked me wide fucking open, like, because they weren't scared of me. And I get a lot of feedback from people being like, oh, you're intimidating, you're this, you're that, whereas they weren't. And it was like so refreshing to not have someone scared of me, you know. And yeah, so when I started seeing that, when I was willing to like show up, see what my body was doing and learn different ways, like work around my patterns and learn how to recondition myself, I started seeing the results in my business. So by the time I'd gone from, like, Bridge was in, like, I think it was like September, October or something. It was October, to the end of December that year, I'd made more in that time than I had that whole year prior. And I was just like, fuck, this really is it. And so my work then became relationships for a really long time. I didn't go straight into business coaching or anything like that, but I was coaching women in leadership and in their relationships and, you know, how their body's holding it. And I went deep into learning somatics and studying every fucking possible thing that I could. And so I coached people in relationships and leadership for about 3 years. And it got to this point where people were just coming to me because my business was so successful. They wanted me to teach them what I did. And I was like, I just did this. And then they all started getting results with the methods and the modalities that I used. And so I was like, I need to make something of this because this is how you are embodied in your business. And, you know, that's kind of how it sort of started, because I was like, I believe that everyone gets to be paid just for being them. Like, just for showing and sharing your magic, you get to be so fucking wealthy in that. However, you have to learn to surrender to the gift that you've got in order to do that. And so when I really tap in and play with that, it's something really potent. So that's where I was like, that's the way forward. And I believe that every woman has the right to have a wealthy life living like that.
Absolutely. So when you say surrender to the gift, how does one do that?
Wrestling with God. um Look, surrendering sounds really like, oh, yes, I'll just surrender. And it sounds easy, but it's fucking hard. Like
It
it is
is, it is
work.
hard. Yeah.
It is real hard. It's
What are the key elements that really need to be there to allow it?
the first one, you need to be the student, right? You have to be willing to face off with your own shadow, your own shit, and um excuse me, be willing to receive feedback from those that it doesn't matter if they buy from you or not. There's still people who are receiving you in the world. And so I feel like everyone has something to learn from people. And when we, excuse me, when we allow ourselves to actually see how the world views us and overlap that with our internal view of the world, that's when we get true perspective of how we're showing up in the world. And so it's like we can have this idea in our mind of what we should be. And then if the world's not perceiving that, then we create dissonance everywhere, right? So it's like you have to be willing to look at, how am I showing up in the world? Am I actually committed to the thing that I say I'm committed to? And am I willing to put my story behind me of why that's not possible? Because there's an old saying of like, you fight for your limitations, you get to keep them, right? It's one of my favorite quotes, because it's like every time that, I've fought for a limitation, it's lingered, it's stayed. And so rather than just sitting in that whole like, this can't happen, it's like, well, what if it could? What would that look like? How do I get curious around how that can happen? And the more that I've played with that kind of energy, quicker things have opened up. Like I said last night on one of my coaching calls, it's like there's been so many moments in my life where I've gone to the point of like, how the fuck am I going to pay the next month's rent or mortgage or things like that, like over the years? And while ever I was hanging on, it felt like it was impossible. It felt like it just wasn't going to happen. The minute I let go, a windfall of like 20 grand would come in or something like crazy would happen. And we calculated it. Throughout my life, in the last 5 years, I should say, there's been over 500,000 that's come in that way. Random ways. That is not business. And this is why I say to people, it's not just about your business. It's about everything that you're being and everything that you're creating. Because if you think it only comes through that channel, then you're not in relationship with God, right? And so that surrender piece for me really came through. Like I'd been working on it for years, but like at the beginning of the year, I sat in another ayahuasca ceremony. And at the time, Urbane and I were going through some deep shit. Like, I mean, deep, deep stuff. He had just quit his job and he was like, I'm going to be a buyer's agent and real estate agent. And he decided he was going to start it from scratch with no connections in the community or like anything like that. And I'm like, in my head, I'm like, this fucking guy, like, you need community to build a business. Like, I'm like, I've been running a business for years, listen to me. And he wouldn't listen to me. And so I had to bite my ego so many times. But the pressure that that put on me as a woman, even though we were fine financially, I instantly went back into my masculine. I instantly went back into, I've got this, it's only on me, I can't rely on anyone else. And so it almost caused us to separate. And I'm sitting in ayahuasca and I get this message and it was like, why do you keep looking for provision from him? It's from me. Provision comes from God, not from people. When are you going to let yourself receive? And I was like, oh, fuck. Like it just hit me like a ton of bricks. And yeah, every time since then where I've gone, it's about him not providing for me. I've actually come back internally and been like, where have I not allowed? Where have I not been open? Where have I not surrendered or trusted that I too am worthy of it? Because I've never actually, like, since I decided to walk this path of like listening to what was real for me, there's never been a moment where I've gone hungry. There's never been a moment where I've been without, oh, yes, there has been moments where I've been homeless, but I've always been somewhere like I could sleep safely, like I ended up on my mum's couch or, things like that. But I've always been safe. I've always been looked after universally at some level. And it really got me thinking, like, how much do we identify with what we're meant to have in order to look the part? When in actual fact, when we start surrendering, it comes even like smoother to us without the need to look a certain way. Does that make sense when I say that? Because it's like, for me, it feels like when I first heard it, I was talking in riddles of like, let provision come through God. And because I had always grown up with like, God was just about religion. Whereas now I'm like, it's universal source, spirit. There's no attachment to any kind of religion there, but it's like, when I started to look at that, that's when I started to understand that that's what surrender is. That's where we get to play. It's like, can you have a faith higher than yourself? Because you're just this tiny little pawn in the big game of life.
Yeah, it really makes sense. And it's so different, I think, for a lot of people because like what you say, God is generally related to the religious God and that, and there can be a lot of rejection of that. I know that I've had that growing up as a Catholic schoolgirl. Yeah,
Yeah, church hurt is a thing, right?
yeah, and then being that just doesn't make sense to me. Like I don't accept that, and going more into the spiritual realm, but I classify God as the same thing as you, where it's universal. It's not one, it's not a man, it's not a whatever, it's and so it's been a big journey for me as well and I think ultimately for so many, we live in a society, in a world that conditions us to want to have things figured out. And there's a lot of fear in the world. And with fear, what do? We go into control. I need to know. I need the answers. That's what makes me feel safe. Not really, but right. That's what the ego is kind of telling us. And so that willingness to really trust in the unknown, which is what faith is to me, it's the thing that is unknown and that we actually know is there, whether we might try to tell ourselves we don't believe in it, but if you are a human being on earth, there are things that we can't see, like oxygen. We can't see it, but we know it's there, right? It's like, well, that proves that there's shit there that we can't see that is actually functioning and being. And so that that mystic realm is definitely there. So yeah, the trusting in the unknown piece is definitely a practice and something that requires, I think, daily practice on and where surrender is really key.
Yeah. I remember at one point in my life saying I was an atheist because I was like, I don't know what's there, but I know there's something there. So that must mean I'm an atheist because I don't believe in the confines of what people have said, right?
Yeah,
But it's
yeah.
like,
But an atheist actually doesn't believe in anything.
yeah, I know. I
Is
know
what
that
is
now.
yeah, yeah.
At the time, I was so not versed in any of this stuff, so I just assumed that that's what it meant, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Um, yeah, it's interesting, right? Like even as a young child, I watched Tiaraki and how he interacts with things and how he tunes in and, plays in attunement with other people, right? Like I can literally be like coughing or have like a moment where I'm like, oh, like, and he'll straight away, Mommy, are you happy? Are you okay? Like, what's going on? Like, because he's just so sensitive to
Yeah.
energy and how it moves around him. It's crazy.
Absolutely. I had an experience with Brooklyn when we were in Bangkok, and she was about two. So she was walking, and she's pretty little. We crossed the road. I was calling down a taxi, and in Bangkok, a lot of the streets, there's shops and there's the little food stalls and things like that. And so there was an old man who came out of this shop and came towards us and was trying to talk to us. And she was someone who literally, we would walk into a shop and she would like go up to the shop assistants and hug them and
Yeah.
she pretty much would love pretty much everyone, but she had a good sense for people even at that age. And this guy was the first one where I saw her literally run towards me. She didn't want a bar of him, and just energetically she could sense, nah, this dude is is not the energy I want to be around. It was so crazy. And it was the first time she'd really had that visceral response to someone's energy, because he
Yeah.
wasn't saying anything mean. He wasn't being aggressive or, anything like that. It was literally simply his energy.
They're
Yeah.
so incredibly intelligent kids. Like I watch Tiaraki all the time and I just think to myself, I'm like, how do you know that? Like, how are you so in tune? Whereas as an adult, we sit there and go, what's my intuition telling me? You know what I mean? Like we ask all these questions and it's just like kids just do it so naturally. Like their whole
Exactly.
movements. Yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah, I love it. And I see that with kids, and we were like that too, right? We just naturally live out our energy, which is why I love human design, because human design is a representation of our natural energies. And
Yeah.
we were like that, where as kids, we just lived it. We didn't have to try to be it. We didn't have to try to be a certain way or whatever. It was just came naturally to us because
Mm.
it's so linked to our energy.
Yeah.
So, okay, cool, amazing. I want to go into for you, like what is embodied business? Like, what is the differentiation between an embodied business and a business that is not?
Embodied business is essentially you are the embodiment of the thing that you say you are selling, right? And so, for example, like, if I were to be like, yeah, sure, Judy, go and sell everyone human design, and you had no fucking idea of human design, or like weren't living it, weren't the like truth in that, like there'd be a question. So for me, embodied business is really like aligned business with your soul calling, like soul purpose. And it's like, how do we actually allow that first is by tapping into what is the embodiment of you,
Mm,
right? And so, yes, we do the strategy. Yes, we do all those other things. But I'm sure you would have seen it. Like most of the time on the call, I'll be like, yeah, cool. So this is what's happening. This is the symptom. But I'm looking at the why, what's really going on. Because it's like you can sit there and say to me, oh, I've done everything. I'm doing all the things. The strategy is working. I've tried everything, Casey. Why isn't it working? And meanwhile, you've got your business in a fucking chokehold that can't breathe because you're just so attached to every single outcome. There's no room for flow. There's no room for movement. And there's no room for you to even just tune in and listen. Like, what's here? What's alive for you? Like, are you just so, like, a lot of people, they hide behind their brand and the version of the brand that they've created that they don't actually tune into, is this still me anymore? Right? Whereas, like, some of the women in embodied business, they've seen it from the very early stages where it's grown with me. Like, the one thing that I'm want to always be a stand for is like embodied business will always hold the energy that I hold. My growth, it won't just stay at the level at which it started at because it's selling and it's easy and it's doing the thing. It's like it has to be the walking, talking organism of what I'm trying to preach to every single person, right? So embodied business is like, are you embodied in the thing that you say is your soul's purpose? And honestly, this is the biggest reason why people don't make money in their craft, right? So it's like embody your craft and then learn how to be in business with it. Because most people, they get to the point where they're like, okay, well, I've got to embody my business. So I better become the walking, living, breathing version of that, right? So just say for example, you're a personal trainer. You're like, I'm going to be so fit that I'm the living, breathing example of that, right? It's great. Awesome. Going to use myself as an example here because this is what I actually learned in the process, right? And I was like, you know what? I love my business. I love being fit. I love everything about fitness. Therefore, people must hire me because I know everything about fitness. I had no relational building skills. I had no systems and strategies. I had no idea how to run a fucking business. How the hell was I going to create a successful business just because I had washboard abs? People were going to hire me? No. People thought I was an asshole because I was so arrogant because I was a bodybuilder and I thought my shit didn't stink. And so I had to learn relational building. I had to learn what it meant to build a business. So it's like embody your craft, but then also you need to learn how to be the CEO to hold that. Hold it in business, hold it moving forward, hold it like in what it is that you're creating. And so that's where we go, okay, cool. First, let's look at, are you embodying it? And then let's look at the structures and systems it actually takes to make that a wealth like thing that can just continue like giving to you, right? Because it's like anything, we need to know how to nurture something and keep the energy sustainable in order for it to keep feeding us. If we like get a plant, put it in a pot, suddenly it grows fruit, then we rip all the fruit off it and we never like give it food or water again, it's not going to keep giving us food, right? We need to know how to nourish it. We need to know how to continue to let it grow. If it needs a bigger pot because that pot's now suddenly outgrown, we need to know what needs to happen and how to build that sustainably. So that's the back end, essentially. That's why I believe it's so important for people to be embodied in their business, because it's like, are you the walking, talking energy of it? Yes. Okay. Now let's learn how to do it in business in a way that actually serves that as well.
Yeah. And it feels so good because I remember myself when I master trainer in NLP, a trainer in NLP, and I'm sitting here across from me with my clients, and they're projecting back to me on these things that I'm not doing. You know, I'm speaking, I'm telling them what to do, and I know what to do.
Mm.
Yet, you know, and as we always say, like our clients, they're our biggest projections, right? They're our reflections back. They're our greatest teachers in many ways, and they can show us elements of ourselves. Not always in the direct way that they're showing it, but it could be in another way, right? Like, so, but I then would come off that call and just feel like so bad because I'm like, fuck, I am not living this. I'm not doing this myself. And as someone who, too, like yourself, embodiment is such a big part of my brand. It's a big part of what my message is and what I'm here for. I was like, I need to fucking live this. I don't want to, integrity is so important. Alignment is so important. I want to feel good. I want to not have to fucking fake it, you know? Yeah.
I used to always say fake it till you make it, like back when I was a personal trainer. And now I always say face it till you make it.
I love it.
It's like you have to learn how to hold the energy of what it is that you're calling in. Like even when we were at the retreat, for example, you're just like, oh, I'd like to see what you do with your money. So I literally just pull up my reports and show you real time, like what happens. And you're like, fuck, I've never seen so much transparency in what someone's willing to showcase in business. I'm like, well, that's the whole embodied business, right? It's like
That blew me away. I was so fucking impressed. I'm like, you're a fucking legend. Like, seriously, there's no bullshitting, you know? This
no
is
numbers
exactly how,
right, right?
yeah.
It's like if I say I earn a certain amount, and I'm going to show you that I earn that certain amount. Like I think this might sound a bit negative or harsh or whatever, but I think this is where so many people get in their head when it comes to like the self-development and the coaching industry, because they've been falsified so many figures online.
It's
Like
true.
you hear everyone going, oh, 100K months. It's like, was that in cash? Was that in sales? How many dropped off? What was the actual final number for that?
Yeah, totally.
Like, what was the real deal here? Because until we start getting really fucking honest, we're not going to have a really powerful business. There was one part of that thing where I was like, yeah, I earned fuck all that month. And I showed you guys because I was like, I'm not going to hide that from you, because business has seasons.
Yeah.
It does. And I think when we're honest with that and we hold integrity in what we're teaching and what we're sharing and what we're selling, like, I'm sorry, but I see people now that I know are not holding multi-business, like they're not running $1 million businesses, and they're saying they are. And I'm like, no, you may have earned $1 million over the lifetime of that business, but it's not $1 million business unless it's in one fucking tax year.
Yeah. And that's the other thing is like, is it in a year?
Yeah.
Or
I
is it
see
over?
time and I'm like, yeah, I'm a multi-million dollar business runner if that's like owner, if that's the case. Like, do you know what I mean? Like it's not yeah, it just gives me the fucking heebie-jeebies when I see people who play with like words that give false hope to other people. Like technically they're not lying, but they're also not telling the truth.
Yeah.
Like, if we want to build trust in this industry, we have to start with integrity of ourselves. Right. And that's why I was like, you know, when I market and when I'm talking to people, it's like I will only ever market and talk to what I've already done, what I'm already fucking so efficient in, that makes it like it's a like nothing for me to teach that because it's so embodied. That's where I come from. And I think if more people played that game, as in like, how do I say it? More people allow themselves to be like, if you're going to be an actual business coach, be willing to share what's behind the scenes. If you're here to teach someone self-expression, you don't need to share that stuff. If you're here to teach someone how to get into their body, you don't need to share that stuff. What you do need to share, though, is that you're fully fucking expressed. What you do need to share, though, is that you have a healthy routine with your body and those sorts of things. Does that make sense when I say that? It's
Yeah.
like, what your craft is, allow yourself to physically know that you can hold that fully, because that's when the energetics stay clean with it.
Yeah. And that's the important element because so many people in business don't trust themselves.
Yeah.
So why not? Well, because you're not fucking embodied in what you're teaching. And so you don't believe in your offer. You don't believe in yourself because you haven't actually spent the time to master your craft. And when you have, then you can fucking own that like a
Yeah.
mofo, and just go, this is my strength. And when you know that with every single cell of your being, I think more of us that are actually embodied and do know the work and do know what we're talking about really need to step into that. Like even on the call yesterday, I was like, I'm still playing small,
Yeah.
and I was like, okay, I'm just going to fucking say it. And
And
it
I'm
was
like,
really,
I just want to smack you because I'm like, I see what you're doing, what you're creating, what you've created already. And I'm like, what fucking gives you the right to think that you can sit there and play small when you've done all this already? I'm like, hey,
give myself a backhand.
I'll give you a cut.
Okay. So
Just,
something,
I'll go on.
something you said is face it till you make it. So
Yeah.
how does someone who knows there's work for them to do, they've got a whole heap of shit in their past that they actually haven't dealt with and haven't confronted, they might even have some health issues come up, and they're like, I'm not ready. I mean, what do you say to them?
Okay. Truthfully, because you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make them drink.
Yeah.
Right? Like, okay. And what does your life look like in 5 years from now if you continue to say that?
Yeah.
If you continue to make the choices that you're making today? Are you going to be happy in 5 years if nothing changes? And they're probably going to go, no, I had this conversation with a client literally last night. Right? She was like, oh, I just can't be bothered putting energy into my business. And I was like, okay, cool. At what cost though? At what cost? Right? You can do the hard thing now, or you can live the rest of your life hard. Right? And it's like, for me, I used to be one of those people who would bash on and on and on and like, everyone should change their life and we all have limitations and we get to release them and blah, blah, blah. And I remember, I don't know how many times I used to say I release everything that's holding me back. Now when I hear that, I just roll my eyes because I'm just like, fuck, I'm still releasing everything that's holding me back. You know what I mean? Like, but yeah, I think if you don't know where to start, just like start to look at like, who do I admire that's doing it? And just see if you can have a call with them. See if you can sit down and pick their brain. Like the old saying of like, you become the byproduct of the top 5 people you spend your time with is so incredibly true. You become the average of those people, right? And it's like, if you want to be a millionaire, start fucking hanging around millionaires because the frequency is there. It's available. You want to be a woman of power or you want to be someone who's here to create big moves in life? Start putting yourself in pockets. And if you can't be friends with them yet, start paying for it. That's where I started. I was like, I have invested over $350,000 into my journey of like coaches and mentors and all those things. And like, I've worked with like Grant Cardone, Gary Vee, like fucking so many big names because I just wanted to hear from them. I wanted their, like, these people, like, I'll never forget the day when I'm sitting there on the call with like Scott Alford and I'm in my head, like, he's one of the biggest coaches in the world, right? And I'm sitting there and I'm like, what did I say to him? I was like, oh, this was like a year ago and I like wanted to really expand embodied business, but I wasn't really there yet. Like I'm only just starting to do it now with the way that I wanted to do it back then. But I was still very much in mum mode. It's like, you go through that cocoon where you start to come out. I've only kind of come out of it in the last probably 6 months. And I was like sitting there and I'm like, I don't know whether to scale my business or to keep it the way it is. And he goes, well, tell me, how many hours are you working at the moment a week? And I was like, anywhere between 4 and 8. And he was like, how much money are you making? And I'm like, about 250K on average. Most years, like it's more, but at the moment, that's what I'm making. And he's like, why do you want to do more? He's like, what's that for you? And I was just like, what do you mean, what's that for me? And he's like, is that just a fucking ego thing? Because right now, you've got so much time with your kids, you're living in so much abundance, and you're stressed about whether or not you have to make more money or not. And I was just like, huh, how many mothers are out there wishing that they could be home with their kids? And it was like such a like moment for me where I was just like, it's really not about the money anymore. So if you have time to be at home with your family, doing the things that you love, taking them where you want to take them, and the times, like we rescheduled this so you could be with your daughter today, right? For example.
Yeah.
It's like, that means, in my view, you've already hit the fucking jackpot. You're already doing the thing. And it's like those like numbers in the bank account, yeah, sure, they're great, but it also comes at a cost. The amount of times I hear people say, I want financial freedom, and I'm like, well, what does that mean for you? When you actually ask them, what does that mean? They go, oh, I just want to not have to stress about money. It's like, well, what does that mean for you? Because some person's idea of that could be like, I need a multi-million-dollar year to not have to stress about money. The other person could be like, I just need 50K a year. It's like the more clarity we bring, the easier it is to define. And I can't even remember the question you gave me. I've just rambled so deeply.
Perfect. So on that, it ties in a little bit with what you're already just saying, but I speak about richness, and we live in a world where rich is often equated to the material wealth. How do you define richness for you?
Vitality is the word that really lands for me. Like I've had, and I'm coming out from a season of it now, a bit like burnout. I'm really trying to heal my body right now. And the thing that I crave so much is vitality, right? And it's like, yeah, sure, I've got the money, I've got the things, I've got the partner, I've got all those things. And it's like, when you can like just feel fucking great without stressing about anything, like there's an energy behind that. There's a magnetism that comes with that. And so for me, that's probably number one. Richness without hustle. The other thing would be like no longer living in someone else's paradigm. And what I mean by that is like, it's like when you have your own business, when you're doing, it doesn't have to even be your own business, but your own way in which you make money in the world, right? When you can start to choose how you spend your time, like actively, like there's a fucking potency in that, because money is only ever time compounded. That's all it ever is. And so when you start to be able to be like, do I want to have clients on this day? Nah, okay. Or do I want to like spend time with my family? Okay. Like I'm literally sitting here going, I think I'm going to go and pick my son up from daycare after this just because I want to spend time with him. Like, and it's not because I have to or anything like that. It's just because right now my soul is yearning for mummy son time. And so it's like, cool, I have the ability to do that. Right. And it's like trusting in those pieces of like what's really here and what's really available. I think that is what the richness without the hustle is. It's like, it's funny actually. I think this is perfect. I was talking to my mentor, Preston, this morning, and I had a one-on-one call with him. And I was like, this is going to sound like a really stupid problem to have, but it's a problem when you're in burnout, right? And as I said, I'm overcoming this at the moment. But we'd worked out that he's like, what do you do for fun? And I'm saying all the things I do for fun. And I realized in that moment, I had literally monetized everything I do for fun. Everything. Right? Like networking events, so I can go out with the girls, like everything that I do for fun. Like my business is so fun for me. And we realized in that moment that that was probably the piece that was burning me out at the same time. Because I wasn't just doing fun for the sake of fun anymore.
Yeah.
Right. And so it was like, his thing for me was like, you have to go have a pleasure practice every single day. It's not like sexual, just like a genuine, I want you to learn how to have fun without making money from it. Like, it's like the opposite to what I teach people, right? Like literally, like my whole thing is like, I want you to learn to live a life where you get paid for it. It's like, he's now trying to teach me the opposite way because everything I do, I've monetized.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it's pretty crazy when you think about it like that. Like sometimes the richness is in just the savoring, is in just the being and being able to be fully present in the moment with those you love without having to be like, oh, I've got to do this. Oh, I've got to do that. Oh, I've got to do that. You know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love that. And it's actually really important. I'm going to start to bring in a bit of human design here, and I literally, we could keep talking all day. I feel like, we could literally just keep going,
You
but,
know, we'll ramble on forever. Who knows?
but I'm going to start to tie it up, and I'm going to give you a little transmission of what I can, just one thing I'm going to pull from your chart, your human design chart. That I was going to just say, as a generator, which is the energetic type that you are, one of the things that I love to just hone in on and remind generators is this point. It's just because you have the energy to do a lot and to keep doing. And you also have the defined root center. So again, you have it's another motor center. So there's a lot of power, there's a lot of momentum that you can build and tap into. And so for someone with a defined root center to burn out, it fucking takes a lot. Let's just say that. You've done really well. And maybe you haven't hit burnout before. Oh no, you actually have hit burnout, haven't you? I remember you've said there's times when you literally just couldn't get out of bed and stuff like that.
Yeah. This was obviously, I don't feel burnt out as such, like
Not
right,
now. Yeah.
but I'm like, I can see that right now. I'm like, okay, I need some rest time. Like I'm more aware of it now.
Yeah. And I think that's the same for a lot of people. It's like you're on the verge of it almost, or, you could go there if you really keep pushing and using
Yeah.
your momentum of what and the pressure.
Mm.
So, but with the sacral energy, right? The sacral center is the life force energy and has consistent ongoing energy like the Energizer Bunny. Yet, just because you can doesn't mean you should. So it's like, it is also the center of creativity. And the thing that we forget is to give ourselves that pleasure in that center. That center actually thrives off that pleasure because that also regenerates it and allows us to tap more deeply into the creativity, the creative side of it, and allow it to allow us to thrive and allow it to thrive. So that's like a really important piece for any generator, any generator with that defined sacral. But before I do a little piece for you, I was just going to say, is there anything you'd like to say in terms of a little another piece of wisdom or advice that you've got for the women that are listening around, them creating a business that is embodied and them really doing life on their terms?
Yeah, the thing that I would say, the most important piece is to clean up your own backyard first. All right, like what we judge, we become. And so if we want to have an embodied business, we must learn to be able to keep our energy clean. Like, and that's one of obviously the main principles that I teach inside embodied business is like, when you're able to self-source, you'll be able to start to bring in way more in your world. And so, yeah, that would probably be my biggest piece is like, and if you're sitting there going, oh my God, like, I don't know if I could ever be embodied in my business. It's like, it's not about like trying to do it like anyone else. Like, that's the thing. It's like, there's a reason why it's called embodied business because your business can only be ran your way. And whilst I can give you systems, strategies, and all those things to make it simpler, we're still going to have to sit down and work out like what feels good for you, what actually is able to keep the energy going without you feeling like shit all the time. So,
Yeah. Is there a first step of what you like to guide women on in terms of being able to really clean up where they could start?
yeah, well, I think the first step when it comes to this sort of stuff is like, look at where you're envious of others, right? And the reason why I say that is because envy is only ever showing you your own capabilities. And when we're envious of another person, it's usually because, well, why aren't I doing it? Why aren't I doing that sort of piece and those sorts of things? So start to look at like, is there any envy that you're holding for anyone else? And why do I only see it that they're capable of it? What do I not think that I'm capable of there? So it might be belief changes, it might be energetic up levels, it might be like really starting to back yourself, like, and those sorts of things. And like when I say this level, this kind of cleanup isn't just like, oh, let's do a quick belief change. It's like repetition of holding yourself in the arena, like being willing to stand in the fucking like middle of the fort and be like, this is what I'm gonna stand for. Like I say all the time, it's like if you're calling in a big life, you need to be able to hold the energy of that life. And that's how you stretch your capacity. That's how you like move into that new level, is being like, well, okay, I'm holding this. Now show me what I can do. Now hand me more. We don't drop one ball to welcome in another. Like it doesn't work that way. So it's really like, you know, when it's about cleaning up your own backyard, it's like, how do I move with my frequency first?
I think that piece is so potent. Like you've actually made me think very quickly
Mhm.
about that in my own life. And oh, that's juicy. That's really good.
Yeah. But
Yeah.
envy is like, it's like this, you know, everyone's made jealousy to be this horrible monster.
Yeah.
When, you know, when I started looking at like anytime I got jealous or envious, right? It was like, well, you make it about the person, about the other person. It's like, well, who the fuck is she to have that? Right. But it's like, well, who is she not to? What right do I have to take that away from her? Do you know what I mean? It's like the only reason I want that taken away from her is because I want that for myself. So am like woman enough to stand in the arena and be like, okay, I'm worthy of this too?
Yeah.
Because the closer it is to you, the closer it is to you. So if you're seeing someone else experiencing that, that's just fucking proof that it's possible for you. So it's like, all right, game on. Let's go.
Yeah, it's a real shift in perspective, because what most people will do is go into comparison and
Yeah.
make wrong and I'm not good enough and I'm not worthy, versus being, fuck, I'm going to use that as inspiration. That's showing me what I actually have the capability of accessing and tapping into. And
Mm-hmm.
so let's go with that.
Yeah. And that's how we shift from the competition to collaboration thinking, right? Like, you know, whenever I've seen a woman who's doing what I desire to do, I'm like, let me pick your brain. I'll pay you for it. I want to do what you're doing. Let me mentor me. You know, like I'm like,
Yeah.
we get to all have a piece of that pie. Like there is so many women who have come into my world because they literally want to build a business exactly how I'm doing it. And I'm like, come on in, let me show you, because this is how we actually move the needle in a way where we get to create a world that we really desire.
And I'm an example of that, you know, like we preach very similar message. We have a slightly different angle, but you know, and I love that about you so much. I just adore how you are with that. It's very refreshing because it's not everywhere.
No, it's not. And I would love it to be. So I get to keep holding the baton for it. Like, do you know what
Yeah,
I mean? Like, I
same.
think, yeah, like we as women, if we can stand for the feminine collective. Like one of my previous mentors, I heard it from Melanie and Leah. She was like, what you do for me, you do for you do for the entire feminine collective. And when she said that, it like fucking rung a nerve inside of me, because it's like, hold on, whenever I'm healing my little girl, my inner woman, like all of these things, I'm also holding the frequency that you get to come with me to, you know? So it was really big. That changed a whole space for me when with that work. So
Yeah, that's powerful. Amazing.
yeah.
So, okay, well, I'm going to give you a little download here on your chart,
Oh,
looking at your chart. So, for everyone who's listening,
you know my
Casey's
secrets.
yeah, it's like I see into your soul. um what I wanted to highlight, so you're a pure generator type, your profile line is 5-1, like natural leader, like really, really powerful. And you have a lot of definition coming down the center of the chart. So from the ajna all the way down to the root center, a beautiful line. And so we've got some beautiful channels in here, two collective channels. There's three types of channels: collective, tribal, and individual.
Mm,
So you have an individual channel and two collectives. And also important to note, like one of the things that I really love to remind people of when they're looking at their chart is that you are all of it. It's like we're not going to limit ourselves. We're not going to use it as a weapon against ourselves. We want to understand that even the projector elements, there are projected elements within your chart. So you have two of your channels actually, and the channels are where we have the activated gate in one center that join up with an activated gate on the other center, and it creates that full channel line.
Yeah.
Connecting those gates. And two of your channels are actually projected gates, or projected channels, I should say.
What is that?
Well, the projected energy is very much around waiting for the invitation. And if you think about your energy and how powerful you are, and how like it kind of can be that piercing energy. That's
I get
like,
told I'm too sharp.
well, it's that, right? It's that. It's kind of, you see it, you say it, right? And that can actually be a lot for people to receive, depending on what's being communicated. And so having the awareness of that is a beautiful piece, because it allows you to either create the invitation, and being recognized for you is actually a really important thing, because the projector loves to be recognized. And in their recognition, actually what that does is invite it, that brings the invitation. So if I was to say, oh, Casey, I really admire how you cut through, and how you go so direct and get straight to the point. Well, that's already inviting you in to be like that with me, because I'm seeing that, I'm honoring that within you. Does that make sense? Yeah. And so the 1156 channel that you have is a projected channel. It's around, like, gate 11 is creating new ideas. Gate 56 is telling stories, like from your experience, from the adventures that you've been on. And I mean, think about what we've just gone into today. You shared your story. You you shared like your experience, and it's like these energies. Why I love the channel so much is because it is our natural energy. Like I mentioned, as kids, it's our natural energy. As adults, it's the same thing. It's the energy that people pick up from us and receive from us, and we don't actually need to try to be this, right? And so there's like this innate curiosity that you have that compels you to explore these new ideas and these new ways. And this as well, the 11 is in the ajna. So also like get you to think about where that gate actually specifically is. So the 11 is in the ajna, which is the answers. It is bringing those ideas and bringing it into a structured form, which you can do for others. And it's like that projectors have a unique way of seeing the world. And so this element is what you bring in. So you can see things in ways that other people don't. And it's like this journey or this quest that you're on that is driven by the story, is driven by the adventure, like that probably drives you and is part of what you're searching for, and will help bring in fulfillment and success, because success is the flavor of the self theme, of the signature theme for projector as well. And so it's like what matters to you is that you have a story to tell. You're a great storyteller. It comes naturally, and we've heard that today, and this is like really reinforcing that. And being recognized for that is also something that you like, and being able to move people through your stories. And on the shadow, or on the downside, it could be the frustration that could come in when you can't see your own negative kind of mental stories as easily as what you can with seeing it in others.
Oh yeah, we don't like I'll be like to my mentors, what are you not saying? Literally.
Because what happens in the ajna is, it's like the head has pressure, right? And the pressure pushes down to the ajna, and it's like experiences that pressure. It's there to process the information. It's a processing hub. And so it's there to uncover the answers. Yet what can happen is a lot of anxiety and or depression if we don't know how to use that pressure in a way that's supportive. But the more you actually, because you at least have the channel that connects that ajna down to the throat. So the more you are actually like expressing what is there for you and using your voice to as a transmission, right? To like process that, the more you're going to actually be able to have the awareness of it versus it just keep churning around in the head and kind of doing its thing and going crazy. That mental anxiety is what can happen when we don't allow that energy just to flow through, because all energy wants to be pushed to the throat and communicated and manifested ultimately.
Yeah. 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 It's funny how
uh
you can be talking to someone and I'll just be like, oh yeah, no, I'm good now. I don't need
yeah,
anything.
yeah, totally.
Mm,
So it's like the more you really weave together and your experiences, your journey, your humility, your humor, the more you're actually going to move people through your ability to communicate so powerfully and effectively.
mm,
And what's going to happen through that is, and what it already does happen, is they are able to discern the that wisdom
mm,
and bring that to their own steps, which is actually what you do. And
mm,
it's something that people come to you for because
mm.
you have that ability innately within you. And I mean, I could go into all the channels, but let's just stop at that one. But that's like such a beautiful and powerful piece to like really love on and really own and really nurture.
Mm.
Um, and we're gonna go way deeper on a one-on-one together. So I don't want to give you too much right now.
I'm actually so excited. I did HD like years ago. I had a reading with someone, but it was like it just sort of, I took pieces and I was like, that's really supported me so far. Whereas now I'm like, okay, I'm ready to go deeper. So who knows? We might give you guys a new update sometime soon.
Yes. Amazing. Did that land? Does that resonate with what I just
Yeah,
shared with you? Yeah, beautiful.
only you could hear the conversations between Jay and I 90% of the time.
Amazing. So it's good to know that, right? Because then it's like, okay, so now that I know that about myself, how do I move that energy? How do I work with that energy? And pressure, even in the root center pressure, it's about learning how do I use that pressure in a way that's really healthy for me, in a way that allows me to move the energy. And that's it, and that's something that you love to work with anyway. So yeah,
Yeah.
and the more intricate our awareness is of what's playing out and how it's playing out, the deeper we know ourselves, and the more then we can apply certain strategies that support us, which obviously you have in place with having someone to really soundboard and
Mhm. Yeah. As well as my many coaches
yeah,
that are
exactly.
on deck. So yeah, it's amazing. Thank you so much for having me on.
Thanks for being here. It's been so much fun. I love you so much. You're such a powerhouse, and everyone make sure you go and check out Case. All of her links and everything are going to be below, and she's got an amazing quiz actually that you can go and take to understand. It's your entrepreneurial type, is it?
Like you discover your CEO style,
CEO
essentially.
style.
Yeah. Yeah.
Great.
Awesome.
Lots of
Thank you
fun.
so much. I love you too so very much. Thank you for having me on.
Pleasure. Talk to you soon.